What's up, guys? It's Sode back with you for the NFL Divisional Round show. I've got a pretty major headache here, so I'm feeling great right now. But at least to alleviate that a little bit, I had a 4-1 night tonight with 3 moneyline underdog wins, so that was pretty good. The Georgetown game was the only loss, and that line actually dropped. I got a bad number on that one. The line was down to like 7, I think, when the game tipped off. But if you look at that game, Georgetown, I think they still should have won the game, like probably by margin. I mean, there were some ridiculous statistics in that game. Georgetown had 21 more field goal attempts in that game. How do you have 21 more field goal attempts than your opponent and lose the game outright? I don't know the answer to that other than the fact that there was a huge free throw discrepancy in the game where I believe DePaul had, 22 field goal attempts to Georgetown, or free throw attempts, to Georgetown's 11, something like that. Or maybe it was 27 to 11, whatever it was. It was a crazy free throw discrepancy in that game. Just kind of bullshit because Georgetown dominated the number of possessions, dominated the boards, dominated in the paint. Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. At least I think they dominated the paint, or dominated the boards. Thank you, Charles. What's up, man? My head is like spinning right now. But yeah, I did get some crazy stuff there. I got the hockey. Hockey continues to crush. I got the Pittsburgh Penguins, and my lean on the other game on Carolina was correct too. Pittsburgh Penguins, easy win, but not only that, but Nedeljkovic was in net there, and he was the first goalie ever to get an assist and a goal in the same game. Absolutely crazy. He went forward and got the goal during the empty net situation at the end. And even though the game was in Buffalo, this was something I didn't even mention, but Pittsburgh, I did mention Buffalo obviously is close geographically to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has a bigger fan base than Buffalo does, especially, Buffalo's just been bad recently. That arena seemed like it was packed with Pittsburgh fans. So that was another thing going on there. Not a whole lot of home ice advantage for Buffalo there. And then I got Indiana won outright in college basketball in overtime. Nice hit on that one. And then Ohio State just continues to struggle a bit. And then had the Dallas Mavs. That was an interesting one. That line crashed down to 2.5. And I'd mentioned that I was going to wait a little bit to see what the number was going to do. So I grabbed 8.5 shortly after I did the show. And then by game time, it was actually down to 2.5 because SGA, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, was ruled out of the game. I guess they decided to probably rest him or something. So the line really crashed after that. So I probably would not have really wanted to take Dallas plus 2.5, but they won outright, so they covered every number. But I was sitting pretty with 8.5. I'm like, man, if I crush the number like this, I better not lose this bet. But that got there as well. The Milwaukee Bucks got there as well. They were looking like it was getting a little bit dicey as they were leading by like 12 for, it seemed like forever. The lead was 12, and then they pushed it back up again, so we got that. My Boston Celtics won in a blowout as well, so that was good for my rooting interest. And I gave out the Celtics as a lean, too. I thought this was a spot where they were actually going to be focused for once, and they were. So, good night for me overall, man. Let's talk about why we're here. We'll talk about NFL. Hopefully you're not disappointed that, there are 4 games, so I'm trying to be a little bit selective. So I only have one play in the NFL here, and it is a side, and it is, you probably already know what it is if I say that it's basically an anti-public favorite. So we will talk about that, but we'll talk about all the games. I'll give an opinion on every side and total in these. So tomorrow, first game up. Nate, what's up, man? Yeah, good night tonight. 4-1. Hell yeah. All right. Tomorrow we have Texans Chiefs as the first game up in the AFC there, which is at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Chiefs are up from 7.5 to 9, 69% of tickets, 78% of the cash. So it does look like the money is coming in to some extent on the Chiefs. Although I will say that I do think the line has moved to some extent just as a teaser killer. I think both in the Chiefs and the Lions games, I'm pretty sure that the books are trying to kill the teasers here because you know that advantage players, like the only teasers that are advantageous are to tease NFL lines through the key numbers of 7, 4, and 3. And if you're looking at a number that's 9, that kind of kills the two-team Two-team dick. Yeah, two-team 6-point teaser because you can only get it down to 3. And for it to be advantageous, you need to get it below the 3, below the field goal. So I think the books are kind of basically telling you that they think that is an advantage teaser, so they're trying to kill it. So they're kind of indicating to you that it seems like they do think that the Chiefs and the Lions should probably win these games outright, and they should. This Chiefs-Texans game, I've gone back and forth on this game, man. I don't have a play on this one, obviously. This is difficult for me to read because my first instinct was, oh, well, the Chiefs are going to be really rusty because the Chiefs, their starters haven't played, I believe, since Christmas Day, which is insane to think about, which was this game against Pittsburgh on Christmas Day because they played Christmas, which was middle of the week, Wednesday, in the second of last week. Then in the last week, they rested all their starters because they had the 1 seed clinched. So they rested everybody against Denver. And then, of course, they had a bye in the first week of the playoffs. So Patrick Mahomes and these guys haven't played since Christmas Day. So I'm thinking, oh, well, that's not good because that means you're going to see rust out of the Chiefs. Double teaming, yeah. I don't like the Chiefs either, obviously. Yeah, they got a vax. That's mostly Travis Kelce, because at least I think Mahomes, or at least his wife, she's like MAGA, dude. And Butker is, we know Butker got in trouble with the left for basically saying that he loves his wife when he spoke at that Christian college graduation or whatever. All right. But my first instinct was, yeah, the Chiefs are going to be rusty, so I want to look to maybe take the points with the Texans in this one. Plus, you're looking at a situation where both these teams play pretty good defense. You know that the Chiefs have really struggled to cover big numbers all season. They really haven't been able to do that. And we just saw this game happen not that long ago. The Chiefs played Houston back on whatever this was, in the middle of December, and Houston actually opened a 1-point favorite in this game, and it moved to Kansas City 3.5. So now we're looking at Kansas City being a 9-point favorite. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't think you're getting any value laying the points of the Chiefs here. I mean, there's no way that you are. Like, the books know that the public is going to come in on the Chiefs, but I don't think that 3.5 was really an appropriate line, because that line was basically just telling you the Chiefs are almost even with the Texans and almost getting home field advantage. If you remember what was going on in that game, it was like Mahomes might not play in that game because he was injured coming into that game too. So there was a lot going on that was messing with the line there, but now the Chiefs are actually healthy. So now I'm thinking maybe the time off for the Chiefs actually isn't that bad a thing, because Mahomes is able to nurse his ankle injury a bit and fix that. They're able to get some other guys back from injury as well here. So it's not all bad for the Chiefs. And Andy Reid is notoriously really good off of buys. And speaking of Mahomes' ankle injury, 2 years ago, everybody was kind of off of the Chiefs, saying they were going to lose because Mahomes' ankle was busted. So I rode the Chiefs the rest of that season, basically. Like, I played them twice in a row, I think, in the playoffs, including in the Super Bowl, and won money on those because I thought the Chiefs were just being undervalued that year because of the Mahomes injury. This year, I don't think that's the case. I mean, a 9-point spread, I think, is too much to lay with the Chiefs in this game. I mean, it's just, you're not getting any value doing it. But the thing is, as I was just alluding to, I think maybe the amount of rust isn't going to be that bad for the Chiefs. You got Reed, who's very good off of buys. Patrick Mahomes is very good in the divisional round. Patrick Mahomes has 16 touchdowns and no interceptions in the divisional round in his career in 6 games, I believe, and he's 6-0 in those games. So the Chiefs have done really well in this round of the playoffs. And the Texans, they've basically made their bones this year by forcing a ton of turnovers, which they did last week. And I know the Chargers actually were a team that was a possession team that really didn't turn the ball over much all year. And a crazy stat from that game was that Justin Herbert threw more interceptions in that one game than he did all season. I believe he threw 3 interceptions on the season, and he threw 4 in that one game. But the Chiefs are also a team that does not turn the ball over much, and I think that they may be less lackluster than the Chargers were in that game. And again, if you're looking at experience, I mean, obviously the experience is on the side of the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs have been here and done that repeatedly. The Texans have only made it this far before, and this almost looks like deja vu from last year, to be honest. Where last year Stroud was a rookie quarterback last year. I know now he does have a year under his belt, so he's a little bit more experienced. That's true. But you remember last year the Texans kind of surprised everybody by getting that first playoff win. Then they had to go on the road and they got their asses handed to them at Baltimore. And I was on Baltimore in that game because I was like, there's no way Stroud as a rookie is going to go into Baltimore and do that. And I was right. And this looks very similar to that game, to be honest, even though Stroud does have a year under his belt now and he has been to this round once already. I'm just not sure that it's really his time. And the Texans are really kind of lacking on offense now with a bunch of their wide receivers are hurt. Now they're basically down to just Nico Collins as they've lost Diggs and Tank Dell, who are both out. Tank Dell, by the way, got injured in that prior game against the Chiefs. And yes, I know the Texans only lost that game by 8, I believe. So Kansas City did cover that short number in that game, but Houston played pretty well, pretty competitively. So I wouldn't be surprised if it wound up being a similar game, but it comes down to, in the NFL playoffs like this, basically if you pick the winner of the game right, they're going to cover like at least 80% of the time. It's more significant in the playoffs than it is in the regular season. So I really just don't see the Chiefs losing this game. So I go all the way to circle back around to slightly leaning to the Chiefs laying the points, but obviously I'm not going to do that. And I do also lean to the under in this game. It's down from 42 to 41.5. 59% of tickets, 64% of the cash on the over. Public usually likes to play overs and favorites, man. I mean, that's the way it is. Although after a lot of unders last week, the public seems to be maybe more hesitant to play overs this week. Although they're coming in a little bit on the over in this one. Looks like more of the cash is coming in on the over, but I just don't necessarily see an over here. I mean, again, you're looking at two defensive teams here in the Chiefs. Again, if they're rusty coming out of having that extended time off, it's going to affect them early in the game, and that might be enough to have this game going under the total, even though it is weird if you say that you lean to a favorite covering a big number and an under at the same time, but that is kind of the way that I would lean in this game. What else was I going to say about this? I think if you want to try to take advantage of the Chiefs potentially being rusty here, you could maybe look to playing the Texans in the first quarter to cover or in the first half to cover. I think you can actually get them +6 in the first half. So I don't hate that. I just don't think they're going to wind up winning the game. I think the Chiefs are going to wind up getting out of this game with a win, and that would force me to have to lean to the Chiefs covering as well, like I said, but very slight lean. I don't love it at all. And then the other thing, if you want to play on the Chiefs rust factor, you could also maybe look to play Chiefs team total under in the first half or something like that. If you think they're going to come out of the gate a little bit rusty and maybe turn it on a little bit later in the game. So we'll see what happens in that game. That's basically what I have to say about that game. Mahomes is what? He's a vaxxer or he's MAGA? I don't even know. Mahomes is MAGA? All right, yeah. He's from Texas. Yeah, he went to Texas Tech. Ozarks are based. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of drug activity there, if that show is any indication. I haven't really watched the show, though. Stay away from Kansas. I've never been to Kansas, actually. I mean, it's the flyover states, right? So a lot of those states I've not been to in the middle of the country. 14 TDs, 4 ints in wins, and 6 TDs and 9 ints in losses. Stroud is schizo. Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, he may not have a great game in this one. I mean, again, we're looking at two good defenses in this one, like I said, and that's the reason why I like the under. And also, it's going to be cold. This is going to be Arrowhead in January, man. It's going to be cold, and cold usually kind of takes the air out of the ball a little bit, and it kind of affects throwing a little bit, and the ball is kind of harder to catch. So you might see teams have to resort to running the ball more. So that kind of lends itself towards an under type of game as well for that reason. And then the other thing I was going to say, as far as it being cold, part of my handicap fading the Texans against the Ravens last year was that C.J. Stroud did not do well in outdoor environments last year. And one of his worst game ever, I think, was at the New York Jets in kind of a bad weather game as well. And he just got destroyed by the Jets defense. And now we're looking at a good Chiefs defense. And last year it was a good Ravens defense that gave him all kinds of problems last year. And this Chiefs defense may do the same thing here. So there are a lot of similarities there, and I don't trust Stroud in the outdoor environment against a good defense, man. That's the way that it is. The demographics, yeah. I know what you mean by that. Yeah, you got to look at the demographics, man. The Chiefs do hate covers, but again, I mean, that's just the way that I lean in this one, the slight lean in that one. I also do not see the Texans winning, although I'll put out one other stat. Cold in Columbus, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. He was in Ohio State. Yeah, Stroud went to Ohio State. Yeah, so it's like, well, that means he's used to the cold, right? Well, not really, because in college, they don't play that late into the season, dude. The season ends, in like early December, so it's not really that cold yet when the season ends. So Stroud, if you look at his numbers outdoors last year, he did not do well in the outdoor games last year, which was, again, part of my handicap when I played the Ravens against them. Although a lot of that had to do with experience as well. Experience looms large, and this is, the Chiefs are the most experienced team in the playoff field here. One thing I will say, though, this is a hilarious stat. The Texans last week, they had 4 interceptions, 4 sacks, and a pick 6 in the game, and the only teams to ever do that. That's the 4th time it's happened in playoff history, and it's the 5th time, and 3 of the previous 4 teams that did that in the playoffs won the Super Bowl that year. I'm not saying the Texans are going to win the Super Bowl. Obviously, I don't think they're going to win this game, but that's just kind of a hilarious stat. The most recent time it happened, though, was that Tampa Bay Bucks, John Gruden Super Bowl winning team in the early 2000s, but I believe the Super Bowl was the game where they did that, where they had 4 interceptions, a pick 6, and 4 sacks, and that game just got way out of hand. So it's a little bit of a weird, kind of misleading stat almost, but it's a hilarious stat nonetheless, that the Texans are only the 5th team to ever do that, and 3 of the prior 4 won the Super Bowl. All right. Washington Redskins at Detroit Lions. Lions sitting at 9.5. This line hasn't moved a whole lot, and they are public. 67% of tickets, 53% of the cash. So it looks like less of the cash on the Lions, but the only way that I could lean in this game is the Lions. Yeah, anyone but the Chiefs and Eagles. Well, if you saw my bracket that I posted, you won't like that, because my bracket has Chiefs over Eagles in the Super Bowl, because I thought both teams, they have the 2 best defenses, and they're both being undervalued and underpicked. So that was what I did with my bracket. Patrick Mahomes, 90s Cowboys, Eagles. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of either team. I don't like Hurts either, really, so not that huge of. I'm not a big Mahomes fan either, though, but obviously Kelsey is the one guy that I really dislike on the Chiefs. Anyway, I would only lean to the Lions as far as the side in this one, even though I know they're public and it looks like less of the cash is on them, but this is a Lions team. I think the rust factor is going to be a little bit less on them, because they played 2 weeks ago, man. And they played all their starters. They beat the Vikings. And the other thing about that is, a lot of times when a team has a bye, you want to look to go against that team coming out of the bye in the playoffs, because it's a little bit of a rust factor, but the team that they're playing against already has a playoff game out of the way and under their belt, so there's less nerves on that side. But I think that Lions-Vikings game was basically a playoff game, man. I mean, that was a Sunday night game. That was a game for the overall 1 seed. So I think you could pretty much argue the Lions have already played a playoff game this year as well. And of course, the Lions were here last year, man. I mean, they weren't this big a favorite. They weren't the 1 seed, but they have a little bit of playoff experience now. I mean, obviously, like I said, the Chiefs have the most in the entire field. The Chiefs have the pedigree. The Eagles and Rams both have a lot as well. Really, all these teams, except for Washington, really all these teams have been here and have been in the playoffs before, at the very least. And most of them have done it multiple times as well. But the Lions, yeah, I mean, I just think experience is going to loom large here. The Lions are definitely the better team. So I would lean that way. And, you got a rookie quarterback. I know Daniels has looked good, but again, Tampa Bay kind of threw that game away, man. I mean, Baker Mayfield fumbled a snap in that game. Then there was that other drive late where Washington turned it over on downs, and Tampa got the ball back with the lead, and then they immediately fumbled it back over, which I think it was, Irving fumbled it back over, something terrible. And I don't know, Tampa was just not really able to establish their offense. I just don't see it in this one, man. I mean, Tampa made a lot of mistakes in that one. Washington's now playing a third straight road game, although I know that the last game of the regular season was a game they didn't really have a whole lot of reason to show up in, and they took out their starters halfway through it at Dallas. But still, I mean, it's a lot of travel for Washington. They're in Dallas the final week of the season, and they were coming off beating the Eagles the game before that, I think. Then they had to play in Tampa last week. Now they have to go up and play in Detroit. So it's a lot of travel for Washington. The Lions don't have any because they played their last game at home. So a rookie quarterback, multiple road games in a row, and less experience on that side. Yeah, I would have to lean to the Lions. Washington, I don't trust their defense either. I mean, I think you're looking at a Lions team that's just better on both sides of the ball as well. So, again, lean to the Lions in this one. Again, like I said with the Chiefs, if you pick the winner, it's likely they're going to cover the spread. So I think it's more so with the Lions and the Chiefs because this game is expected to be way higher scoring. So that's better for the favorite as well. Down from 56 to 55. And now I heard some bettors that I listened to saying that, some professionals saying that the public was actually on the under in this game. I don't really see it. I see 55% of tickets on the over and 63% of the cash on the under, but I do agree with all those guys on the over in this one. I agree with the over, and the public is not on the over very significantly in this one at the very least. Public, I think, a little bit hesitant, even though kind of crazy because with Washington against the Lions, you would think the public would only want to play the over in a game like this because they know both these teams can score a lot. But the total, I think, just looks so high that the public doesn't even want to get involved in this. But I actually do like the over in this game. I think you're looking at that Lions performance against the Vikings 2 weeks ago where it looked like the Lions defense was really good. I think that was a little bit of an outlier, man. I mean, Sam Darnold, he was a statue. He looked like deer in the headlights, man. I still don't think he's good. I don't think he's a big game quarterback. He did not look good at all. But Jaden Daniels, he can make moves with his feet, man. He can really pose some problems for you. So I think that the Lions defense is going to have more, they're going to have their hands full more in this game than they did against Sam Darnold, man. That's just the way that it is. Daniels does seem like he's pretty cool out there for a rookie. So I think Washington is going to score points in this game. I think the Lions defense is not as good as it looked in that game. Lions run defense is actually better than their pass defense, and the Redskins throw the ball more than they run it. And if you think this is a game where the Lions are going to be scoring a lot and have the lead for a lot of this game, that means Washington's going to have to be throwing the ball even more to try to catch up, which is actually good for them to score some points. Good for the over in this one. So I do like the over. This was almost a play for me. This is the first one that I left off. I was going to have two plays, and it was going to be the over in this one, but I decided to just stay off of it. Just a little bit of hesitation on the over, playing the over here, but I do like the over. Again, I mean, Washington's defense is terrible. Lions should be able to score a lot here. The Lions have been consistently putting up over 30 points in like every game. So I do like all that. I think the over is probably the best way to play this game. I don't hate playing the Lions team total over either, although I think it's probably 33, somewhere in that vicinity, so it's a little bit high. But again, against a bad defense, I think they should be able to probably put up some points here. I don't know if the rust from having that 1 week bye is really anything to be a little bit worried about early on in this game. But I expect both teams are going to put up points here. And this is in a dome. This is the only of the four games that's in a roofed stadium here and in climate controls. All the other games are going to be in cold weather. So I like the over in that one as far as the strongest way to play this one. And I lean to the Lions in that one slightly as well. Yeah, Baker, I don't know what he was doing, man. I mean, he's been handing the ball off all year. The rushing attack was good this year. I don't know what that was. Yeah, Daniels and Brian Thomas Jr. Pretty good keepers there for fantasy, man. Brian Thomas Jr. looks like the real deal as well. He needs a quarterback to throw to him, though. All right, and then we got the Sunday games. That Washington and Lions game is tomorrow night. That's the Saturday night game. Sunday afternoon, this is the game where I have a play, and it is the Philadelphia Eagles -6. That's my one play in any of these games. Eagles shot up from 4.5 to 6. It's going through the 6. You want to make sure that you play this at less than a touchdown, obviously. I mean, there's not a huge difference between 4.5 and 6. I mean, 5, 5.5 are basically dead numbers. 54% of tickets look like they're on the Eagles, 65% of the cash on the Eagles. To me, I think the public sentiment is actually kind of on the Rams in this one. And you know what I say about public underdogs. It's usually not a good way to look when the public likes underdogs, because the public usually likes favorites. So if they're on an underdog, that should give you a little bit of pause and should make you really consider playing the favorite in that one. And plus, it means playing the favorite, you're getting a good team. Although, I mean, this is the playoffs, so you're getting a good team regardless of how you play this. But I think the public sentiment here is that the Rams are like a team of destiny now. And I know I played the Rams last week. It was a good spot to play the Rams, in my opinion. But that was a huge emotional game, man. The Rams had their families with them, with the LA Fires going on there, and they really easily took care of business. And I think the public is going to think that the Rams blowing out the Vikings is much more impressive than the Eagles, what they did against Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay turned it over 4 times in that game against the Eagles. Basically handed the game to the Eagles. Everybody was just shitting on what Green Bay was doing in that game. Oh, Jordan Love, I mean, he's still playing hurt. He just, he's just making a ton of mistakes, whatever. So the Eagles, out of all the teams that won last week, the Eagles had the least impressive win, I think, based on what the public thinks. But still, they beat one of the best teams out of all the teams that won. The Packers are a pretty good team, man. And the Eagles were able to beat them and beat them by margin. And remember, Jalen Hurts hadn't played in like 3 weeks. So he had a bad game in that game. His stats weren't good, but he was rusty, man. So I think now he's shedded off the rust. And I think he's going to be ready to go, man. And this is a game where the experience factor, yeah, I mean, the Rams do have a bit of an experience edge. I mean, they've won the Super Bowl, but obviously the Eagles have been to the Super Bowl before. So both these teams have playoff pedigree, have the experience here, even if it is a little bit more on the side of the Rams. I just don't think this is a good spot for the Rams. The Rams had all that stuff going on last week with the Fires. It could be a distraction, whatever. They played a really nice game, got the nice win, and now they have to travel to the East Coast to face the Eagles, and it's an outdoor game in like 20-degree weather, and it's going to be snowing to some extent in this game as well. So I don't like that either for a Rams team that's a warm weather, like roofed stadium team, having to go play the Eagles. I really don't like that. I think this sets up nicely for the team that is used to playing in the weather like this, and the team that has the better rushing attack, and the team that has a better defense, and that is the Eagles as far as checking all 3 of those boxes. So, I mean, this Eagles team is, I think they're a bit undervalued right now. And the Eagles, I think this is a good matchup for the Eagles, too. The Eagles, earlier this season, we did see them go out to the Rams, and they absolutely annihilated the Rams, and it wasn't even a good spot. The Eagles had beaten Washington on a primetime game. It was Thursday night, so they had a little bit of extra time off. They had to go out to the Pacific Coast to play a night game, which I always say East Coast teams going west for a night game, it is not good for their biological clock. And they had the Ravens up next, and the Eagles still won that game, and they won it handily. They blew out the Rams. So, I mean, I just think there's kind of a matchup issue here, man. If the Eagles can do that, and it's not even a good spot, and it's on the road, and the Eagles, by the way, were, I believe, about a 3-point favorite in that game, and now they're only a 6-point favorite at home. So what gives? I mean, if there were 3 on the road at the Rams, and I know the Rams look better now than they did then, but even so, I mean, that indicates this line should probably be over a touchdown here. The Rams, I mean, their defense has looked good the last few weeks, but their defense wasn't good throughout much of the season, man. I don't know if I trust this Rams defense here. And the Eagles, they certainly have a balanced offensive attack. I think Hurts having that game under his belt is going to help. And the Rams, they don't do well against quarterbacks that can do things with their feet, man. I mean, look what the Rams did this year against quarterbacks that can move a little bit. They got hammered by Arizona in that one game. Jordan Love can move a little bit, I guess, and they lost that game. Caleb Williams, I mean, he's not a stature. They lost that game. They lost badly to the Eagles, as I said. Tua beat them as well. So, I mean, the Rams did not do well against quarterbacks that were a bit mobile, though they did beat Kyler Murray in Arizona in that final game there they played against them. But still, Rams do struggle against quarterbacks like this. And I know the Rams did beat Buffalo. That was a huge win for the Rams there. I was on the Rams in that game. And that game, it was just a really bad spot for Buffalo, man. And the Rams defense still really gave it up in that game. But Buffalo they were coming off beating the Chiefs. Then they beat San Francisco in a crazy like snow primetime game. And they had Detroit up next. And they were having to go to the Pacific Coast for that game, even though it wasn't a night game. But that was just a bad spot for Buffalo. So I'm not going to take too much away from that Rams game there. And the Rams defense really didn't do well there. But for all those reasons, yeah, give me the Eagles in this one, man. I think it sets up nicely for that to be the case. And the total, by the way, is down from 45.5 to 43.5. But I think the reason why the total is moved like this is because of the weather. So I actually think that it might be a little bit of an overreaction to the weather in this one. So I would actually lean to the over in this one. 54% of tickets and 54% of the cash, both on the under in this one. But I would actually lean slightly to the over in this one now that it's down to 43.5. Again, I think it's an overreaction. Snow alone usually does not like take away that much from the offenses. Usually the offenses can still move the ball, especially if they're running the ball. It's wind that you really have to worry about as far as it affecting like throws and kicks. Snow alone doesn't really, and snow a lot of times can cause problems for the defense because the defense, they don't know which way the offense is going to move, so the defense has to react. So the slippery field can actually hurt the defense a bit as well. So that's the way I look as far as the total in that game. But I think the best play on the board is to lay the points with Philadelphia in this one. And I was going to say, by the way, in that Washington Lions total, I mentioned the Lions. I don't think their defense is as good as they looked against the statue of Sam Darnold, which, by the way, the Rams also played statue of Sam Darnold in the last game. So, again, I think that both defenses are going to have their hands more full this week. Lions and Rams both should. But Washington also, they didn't score that many points last week against Tampa, man, surprisingly, because we thought that game was probably going to be a bit on the higher scoring side. Washington played a weird, possession game where they didn't give up possession of the ball. They just had some really long possessions. That's not really what they do. And if they fall behind against the Lions, like I said, they're not going to be able to play a possession game. They're going to have to start throwing the ball to try to catch up. So that's another thing. I think those previous results from those two teams are a little bit misleading as far as how low scoring they were. So again, I like the over in the Saturday night game there. 52% of Philadelphia adults are functionally illiterate. That might be the case. Fentanyl addicts. I mean, they're all crazy there, man. I don't know. Philadelphia Eagles, they have some of the craziest fan bases that are out there. They have the craziest fan base probably that's out there, and I don't mean that in a good way. Chargers were most impressive. The Houston Texans win over the Chargers, you mean, was the most impressive? Maybe. I don't know. I think the Rams one probably impressed a lot of people. Brian Thomas, 70 yards with Mac Jones. Mac Jones is terrible too, yeah. An office pool. I do not. I'm in a pool on Splash Sports, which is for $50 or something like that. Which I'm 5-1 right now. After the wild card, I went 5-1 against the spread in that pool in the wild card round. And of course, one of the games I lost was one of my actual bets, where I went 1-1 against. I lost on Tampa Bay, so isn't that just great? A literal measured stat. I don't know, man. The fentanyl stuff, I have no idea. Sleepy Clint out west, yeah. Those East Coast teams out west, man, I know. They have to play they play late into the night, basically. Yeah, living out west, you get to all the games get played while it's still daytime out. I don't know, man. Because I don't like to get up. I don't want to get up early, even though I do, obviously, because I work and whatever. But I don't like the idea of NFL games starting at 10 in the morning, man. I just don't. It just seems wrong to me. T-shirt and shorts in December, in January. Not in these three games. In Kansas City, Buffalo, and Philadelphia here. Skip some of the places out there. Skip LA entirely. Some of my coworkers like sports, yeah. We usually don't do much anymore. We used to do fantasy at some of my offices. We used to do pick'em, and I don't know, people just thought it was too much to do or something, I don't know. So we basically just have a survivor pool at work. All right, last game up is Ravens-Bills. Probably the best game out of all of these. This is a crazy game, man, where it's one of these teams is going to finally get over the hump and win a huge playoff game, and the other one is going to continue getting shit on for not being able to win in the playoffs. This game is kind of hard for me to read, man. And initially, I thought the Ravens were going to be a play for me, and I still lean that way, but I've heard professionals on both sides of this game, and I just don't want to do it. I just can't figure it out. I lean to the Ravens in this one, but because I'm hearing professionals with split opinions on this, I'm just not going to come in and do it. Ravens immediately, by the way, flipped from a 1-point dog to a 1-point favorite up towards 1.5 here. So the initial money did come in on the Ravens, and I think that was legitimate money, I think, from some of the sharp guys. I think they do have the Ravens. A lot of guys have the Ravens power rated as like the best team in football. So that is why. So, I mean, excuse me, the odds makers are telling you that the Ravens are the better of these two teams. And I don't know if come Sunday night we're going to see the Bills wind up being like kind of a home public underdog in this one. And if we do, then I would really say you got to look to the Ravens in this one only. 59% of tickets, 65% of the cash on the Bills right now, though. So it doesn't look like that heavy public action on the Bills. But again, I think the public sentiment might be that this line looks too high on the Ravens. Like, how are the Bills getting a 1.5 at home when this looks like a very competitive matchup? Odds makers, again, are telling you the Ravens are the better team, but has the line gone a little bit too far? I don't know, because the Ravens played Buffalo earlier this year, and the Ravens absolutely crushed Buffalo in that first game. 35-10, that was in Baltimore, and Baltimore was only a 2.5-point favorite in that one, and now they're almost down on the road, so it seems like you're not really getting a whole lot of line value there, even though maybe the Ravens are a little bit better than we thought they were then, because they were 1-2 going into that game. So the Ravens were a little bit undervalued. I do actually think they are the better team, but maybe not such that they should be a 1-point favorite here. But again, whether it's a 1-point dog or a 1-point favorite, it's still you're just picking the winner in this game pretty much. Whoever wins this game is going to cover. So, I mean, pretty much. So you are just picking the winner, and I do tend to think that is going to be the Ravens. I think the Ravens have some advantages in this game. I'm not going to take that much away from the fact that they annihilated Buffalo in this game. I mean, the spot wasn't that good for Buffalo, but it was still a step-up game for both teams. Buffalo was coming off absolutely murdering Jacksonville, and that was after they killed Miami, which was Miami still with Tua there. That was still like a big divisional matchup at the time. Then the Bills crushed Jacksonville in primetime. But still, they had to go to Baltimore also in primetime. I think so that's still a big game that they still should have stepped up for, and they got crushed in that game. And in some ways, I think Baltimore does have some matchup edges in this one. I mean, Baltimore, one of the knocks on them is that they haven't been able to win playoff games, but they have Derrick Henry now, man. And one of the major reasons why the Ravens lost last year to the Chiefs was that the Ravens didn't try to run the ball. I don't know what they were doing. They didn't use their ground game at all. Well, now they have Derrick Henry, so I think that it's highly unlikely that they're not going to use their ground game in this one. They're going to use it. And I think that helps as far as it being a cold weather environment here. Both teams are going to try to establish the ground game, and the Ravens have the better ground game. So I like the Ravens for that reason. I think the Ravens actually might be better on both offense and defense in this game as well. I know the Ravens had some struggles on defense throughout the year. Their offense is certainly very powerful. One of the best offenses in football. The defense had taken a step back without Mike McDonald there anymore, but their defense has kind of turned it around recently. Same as the Rams, although I said the Rams, obviously I'm fading the Rams this week, so I don't think the Rams are going to have the greatest defensive performance in this one this week. But the Ravens, I could see their defensive performance being better in this game. I could see their defense continuing to play well. I think this game is going to be a lower scoring game than people think. This is a high total, and it's down from 52 to 51. 51 is a key number. The public's coming in on the over on this because, this is Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, man. And it's two teams that put up points, so the public likes the over in this one. This is one of the games where they do like the over, and I don't agree. I like the under in this one. 59% of the cash is on the under in this one. If you like the under, you got to get it under 51, man, at least, because 51 is a key number in football. But I think this is going to be a lower scoring game than people think. It's a very cold weather game here. The game's going to be in the teens, I think. and it's an evening game as well. It's going to be cold, which is going to affect the passing offenses to some extent, like I said. So I think you're going to see both teams running the ball quite a bit. Could be a pretty good game. I don't think it's going to be a Ravens blowout like that other one. But yeah, I mean, I like the under in this one, and I do slightly lean to the Ravens because I think they are the better team. And the other thing about this is when you saw the playoff bracket games come out for this on like ESPN and whatever, it seemed like the Bills were being overpicked and the Ravens were being underpicked. Because if you looked at like what the odds makers are telling you on the futures and whatever, the odds makers had the Ravens with a better chance to win the Super Bowl than Buffalo. And yet in the brackets, people were picking Buffalo to win this game. So this is one of those like kind of switch games, like leverage kind of spots when you're playing like game theory and like a bracket game where it's, well, too many people are playing the Bills, so you want to look to pick the Ravens, at least in a bracket. But a lot of times that can work out as far as handicapping the game as well, where it kind of tells you the public might be a little bit too heavy on that other side. They might be a little bit too heavy on the Bills in this one. The Ravens, I just think they have more weapons, although it seems like Zay Flowers might be out again. That was one thing I didn't even mention last week, but Zay Flowers actually missed the game last week against Pittsburgh, and it seems like he hasn't practiced all week, so he might be out in this game as well. The Bills are very public. I don't know that they're very public, but I do agree with the Ravens as far as it stands right now. The sandwich of sandwich. No, I have not. Where is that at? Is that in Sandwich, Mass, on Cape Cod? The battle of the shitholes. Yeah, Baltimore and Buffalo. Baltimore's worse. Baltimore's awful, dude. I mean, Buffalo's more of like a typical like Rust Belt city. Baltimore is absolutely like a violent nightmare. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and Harbaugh, yeah, that is also true. I mean, I think you got to give the Ravens the coaching edge in this one as well with Harbaugh there. Even though I do think probably you got to give the coaching edge. The coaching edges have got to go to Andy Reid, Dan Campbell, even though Quinn has been pretty good with Washington. Sean McVay, even though I'm fading him. I mean, I don't think Sirianni's that bad. And Sirianni, by the way, he's playing like he's got to win like for his job right now, man. Because I think like Philadelphia, like their fans were like up in arms, and like they weren't even satisfied with the way the Eagles won that game. So, I mean, in a way, he does have pressure on him, but in a way, that win, I think, got that monkey off his back a little bit. Because, like, if he was going to, like, bow out in the first round of the playoffs again, the Eagles fans were going to, like, have his head, probably. Especially after he had, like, rested Jalen Hurts again, after Hurts was injured. But now I think everything's good for the Eagles now, and I think the Eagles are being undervalued now. But, yeah, I also give the coaching edge to Harbaugh over McDermott in this game. I think Harbaugh, I mean, he's the real deal. And he has a Super Bowl win. He's been with the Ravens forever. It wasn't with this Ravens team, of course. It was all the way back with Joe Flacco. Harbaugh's been there for so long. But, yeah, I would give him the coaching edge in this game as well. Ravens lost McDonald and Patrick Queen, yeah. Queen on Pittsburgh now. AFC South has more wins in the postseason than the NFC North and the AFC West combined. Yeah, that's true, but it's because they had buys. But that is a hilarious stat. But yes, it's because AFC West. I mean, yeah, because the Chiefs had a bye and yeah, the Lions had a bye. Although Green Bay lost, of course. Jewish-owned teams versus normal people-owned teams. I don't know, man. I don't know what the stats are on that. Yeah, Baltimore's terrible. Don't go there. I've been there. Sandwich, Mass. No, Mass is not 30 minutes around. It takes like, if you go east to west, if you go from the western point of Massachusetts, like the northwest tip of Massachusetts, like Pittsfield, Adams, like way up there, and you go all the way, you drive all the way around to the tip of Cape Cod to Provincetown, that's going to take you like probably 10 or 12 hours, dude. So no. But like just from like the western edge of Mass, like the New York border to Boston, that's probably like 4 hours. Flacco does play. He was one of your cousin's roommates in college. That's crazy. Flacco is on my Indianapolis Colts right now. We'll see if he continues to play or if he retires now. But yeah, I mean, Flacco, he played in the playoffs last year with Cleveland, and he was almost playing in the playoffs this year with Indianapolis. I mean, fairly close. Yeah, Broncos, Packers, Vikings, and Chargers all lost. What I will say is that the other thing about this Ravens-Bills game is I actually think that the public is going to put more stock in the Bills crushing win over the Denver Broncos, because I actually think the Broncos were being pretty hyped with Bo Nix there. Like, everybody loves the rookie quarterbacks. Everybody was loving the Broncos, loving Bo Nix, loving the story, and the Bills totally destroyed them and held them to 7 points. I think the Broncos actually scored to open the game. They were winning 7-0, and then they didn't score again. But I liked the Bills in that one. I mean, that was a rookie quarterback on the road. Obviously, I was not going to have anything to do with that. So I almost bet the Bills in that one. But I think the public is going to put more stock in the Bills' destruction of the Broncos than the Ravens beating the Steelers by 14. Everybody's trashing the Steelers. The Steelers just have a horrendous offense, horrendous offensive line. They just look ugly. So the fact that the Ravens only won that game by 14, I think the public doesn't like how that game looked, even though the Ravens completely dominated that game, though. I mean, the Steelers scored to cut it back to 14 close to the end of that game. The Ravens were dominating that game, and I think they just kind of let up. So, again, I mean, I think that might also put the public on the Bills a little bit. And I think that's going to do it, man. That 45-minute video or whatever for 4 playoff games. Playoffs, Laney is in the house. That is right. The Laney edits are some of the best. And now, by the way, if you go to rumble.com, where Tower Gang's Rumble is, we have all of the Laney edits. I think at least going back about 40 episodes or so. Top Lobster uploaded all the Laney edits. They're all up there now. So you can just go and you can watch Laney edits only if you want to. I believe that is on a public Rumble stream for you. So you can go find that. Titans have been scheming with the Chiefs all year now. The Titans took the Chiefs' assistant GM. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there. Although I will mention the Steelers aren't good enough. They're good enough to win. Yeah. So you're right. They constantly make the playoffs, so they don't have good draft picks, and then they just don't win when they get there. But, I mean, the Steelers have just had bad personnel for a while, man. I still think Mike Tomlin is a very good coach. Meet the boys from Tower Gang. I met them online. We were, during the height of all the COVID bullshit, we were towering journalists and stuff on Twitter with, N-word towers and stuff like that, or actually more very complicated towers to some extent. They were really giving journalists hell and towering them, and we were all in a tower group together. Me, Jose, Cole. Eventually, Clint was in there. Reed eventually was in there as well. Nick Ashley back in the day was in there as well, so he was on the early episodes of Tower Gang. And Top Lobster may have been in there at some point. Top Lobster was our merch guy at first, and then he joined the show. I actually knew Jose from before that. I knew Jose from like 3 years earlier. I knew him from the Dave Smith Part of the Problem Facebook group. So I knew Jose from back then as well. So he just also happened to be in the Tower Gang group. So if that answers that question, yes, go check out the Laney Edit. The Laney Edit. I was gonna call it a stream, but it's a Laney Edit channel, I guess. Scoreboard, thank you, sir. I try. Yeah, we were with Dave Portnoy, actually, around a glory hole. Dave Portnoy, of course, does a lot of pizza reviews in my area. So I've never actually run into him in person, though. I keep expecting that I will. Thank you, guys. All right, that's going to do it for me. So, again, hopefully you enjoyed those breakdowns. My one actual play is the Eagles -6 for the NFL Divisional. Hopefully some good information in there for you all. Hopefully that is a winner, and that's going to do it. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. I appreciate it. You guys are always hanging out late night for the football streams. These streams get like my most views, which doesn't surprise me. Although the college football ones actually got more than the NFL, which kind of surprised me. But I'm Toad, of course, Tower Gang Toad on Twitter, and you can follow the Tower Gang podcast, patreon.com/Tower Gang, to give us some support, and you'll get live pre-show, post-show, hang out in a Telegram with us, submit to the mailbag, and you can check out Tower Gang on Rumble. We do live stream to YouTube, although we take everything down from YouTube. So we're mostly on Rumble at this point, basically exclusively. And there is a Patreon Spotify feed. And, of course, like I said, there is the Laney channel on Rumble now as well. Should be up there somewhere as well. So you can find all the Laney edits in their own place. And I will shout out, because I always do on the NFL shows, flapper.net, FLAPPR.net, the purveyors of the world's finest smut blog. They finally put out the blog post that everybody was been waiting for, the blog post of the year, the Milkers of the Year awards. And I think you know who won, but you may not know who won each individual category. There were winners in a bunch of individual categories. I helped do like the betting odds for that as it was going, but those guys do a good job there, and it is, again, a hilarious and entertaining post about famous women's milkers. So go check that out. And yeah, I think that's going to do it. Charles, you acknowledge me, acknowledge Toad, acknowledge Charles as well as Toad, man. Yes, I try, man. Thank you. I appreciate all the words. And let's do it. Let's have a good night here. I'm going to get some sleep and hopefully get rid of the rest of this headache. And I'll be back in the morning and have to break down this giant college basketball slate, which I'm not exactly looking forward to it, but I will be back and I'll have that. And we have a huge hockey slate as well. Saturdays are tough, man, during college basketball. You got tons of hockey and tons of college basketball, a little bit of NFL going on. There'll be a little bit of NBA as well. Good night to you too, Laney. Good night, everybody. The Frozen Canes. Yeah, I did mention that I leaned to the Hurricanes tonight, and that one was a correct lean. All right, thanks, guys. Peace out. Have a good night, everyone.